Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tana Andrea D. Macabante, and we are down to the last subtopic of the Topic 2, the science of psychological measurement, a statistics refresher. So I am tasked to report about graphic representations of correlation and the meta-analysis. So first, for our topic outline, first, we will be discussing the scatter plot and the uses of scatter plot, then the meta-analysis, the key advantage of meta-analysis, and other advantages of meta-analysis. For our intended learning outcome, at the end of the discussion, the students are expected to first define scatter plot, determine the uses of scatter plot, define meta-analysis, and identify the key advantage and other advantages of meta-analysis. So the previous reporter have already discussed about correlation, and we can also visualize the relationship between variables. That would be through the use of graphic representation of correlation. Examples are scatter plot and also line graph. But today I will be focusing my discussion on the scatter plot. So scatter plot is also known as bivariate distribution, scatter diagram, and scattergram. This particular graphic representation of correlation is defined as the simple graphing of the coordinate points for the values of x and y variables. So as we all know, or if we can still remember, the x variable is located along the horizontal axis of the graph, while the y variable is located along the vertical axis of the graph. So next would be the uses of the scatter plot. First, it provides a quick indication of the direction and magnitude of the relationship between two variables. So as we can notice here, we have two keywords, the direction and magnitude. So since it is a graphic representation, we will now see, or we can easily see, the direction of the data points in the graph. So what will those data points, or the direction of those data points, help us? So it should be noted that this can be used to distinguish the positive and negative correlation. As it is stated by Stanglin, Williams, and Welch, 2022, a scatter plot with a positive correlation shows all the data points in the graph are in a pattern trending upwards from left to right. So if a certain data point has a pattern trending upward from left to right, it has a positive correlation. While on the other hand, if the pattern or the graph has a pattern trending downward, it has a negative correlation. So the next keyword is magnitude. So to estimate the strength of magnitude of the correlation, the degree to which the points form a straight line must be noted. So if the data points form a straight line, it indicates that it has a higher strength of magnitude. So to understand it more, I will show you the examples. So this is an example of scatter plot. So as you can see, the data points are in a pattern trending upwards from left to right. So that means that it has a positive correlation, or it has positive values of R. And then for the last image, we can see that the data points are forming straight lines or have formed straight line. So that means that it has the largest or the highest strength of magnitude. The next, as we can notice here, we have also a pattern, but then the pattern is trending downward. So that means that it has a negative correlation. So we can now distinguish the positive and negative correlation through the scatter plot. Another use of the scatter plot is that it reveals the presence of curvilinearity in a relationship. So what is this curvilinearity? Curvilinearity is the estimation of how curved a graph is. So there are data points that show straight lines, and there are also data points that shows curves. And then next, it helps in spotting outliers. So what is these outliers? Outlier is an atypical point located in a relatively long distance from the rest of the coordinate points. So here is an example. So on the left side, we have an example of a scatter plot showing a nonlinear correlation. So we can see a curve in the graph. And on the right side, we can see an outlier that is the point that is located from the far from the rest of the coordinate points. So now for our next topic, we have the meta-analysis. So it is best to infer that the estimated correlation between two variables is accurate when it is not anchored to a single study alone, but from various studies. So one of these is to present the range of statistical values calculated from a number of different studies of the same phenomenon. Another is to combine statistically the information from different studies. That is what we call meta-analysis. So meta-analysis is defined as a family of techniques used to statistically combine information from various studies to produce single estimates of the data. So the estimates derived is what we call the effect size. So there are several advantages that are being linked to meta-analysis. And the key advantage of it is that it studies with larger number of subjects, and that larger number of subjects are given more weight. So usually, the credibility and reliability of the conclusion of a study is the population of the respondents of participants. And since this is the case in meta-analysis, the estimates can be more reliable. That is what makes meta-analysis advantage. And some other advantages of meta-analysis are, first, it can be replicated. When we say it can be replicated, it can be used as a reference for future research. Then, the results are more reliable and precise compared to conclusions derived from a single study. So, since it is defined that, or according to the definition, it is the combination of information from various studies of the same phenomenon. So, the idea presented may be considered as supporting and related literature, making it more reliable. Next, more focus is given on the effect size rather than in the statistical significance alone. And last, it promotes evidence-based practice. So that would be all for the meta-analysis and the scatter plot. Thank you.